Hi guys, hi. How's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today, I sound a little hoarse. I'm a tad bit sick, but the show must go on, and right now I've sprayed my throat with some stuff that makes it numb. So now is the time. My voice will be a little bit in and out. I apologize if that's not what you're into for the day, but I wanted to make sure that I got these videos recorded. I typically have quite a bit in my backstock videos to push out, but because we're rolling into the new year, I didn't have any backstock left, so I need to make sure that I got some videos recorded over the weekend. Today is New Year's Eve, as I am recording, and I got sick on Friday. Yesterday, I slept all day long, like all day long. So I feel a little less like The Walking Dead, and now just have a throat issue. I really apologize for my voice, but I really wanted to make sure that I'm here for you guys and taking care of all the business that needs to be done. And I wanted to do this palette roulette on the last day of the month to make sure that I could get these palettes into my palette ranking that you guys will see probably next week as well, because I've been utilizing these, the power of YouTube. You maybe just saw the video like last week or the week before, I think, but I've been utilizing these palettes for about 3 weeks now. So today I am doing my palette roulette. If you're new, this is a video series on my channel in which I utilize a palette that's in my collection, maybe 2 palettes that are in my collection, maybe multiple palettes in my collection. I utilize them and them alone as far as eyes go. I get real familiar with the palettes, and then I come back to you and I talk to you about the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things I experience with the palettes. I show you some eye looks, some swatches, and then we pull a new palette to do this all over again with. And this week I have the ABH Cosmos and the Urban Decay X Smiley Mucho Happy palette to bring to you in terms of palette roulette. So a real in-depth review on both of these palettes, and I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry. I'm a field leader for Ulta Beauty. I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here. Ultimately, I'm just out here talking about makeup because I love to talk about makeup. And I'm assuming if you're here that you probably also like somebody talking about makeup. So let's just do that. Let's just talk about some makeup. I have a lot to record today, so I hope that my voice holds out. I sound like a real burly man right now. Okay, we are reviewing these 2 palettes, and I'm going to handle them separately because they are very, very different palettes. I typically do that unless I'm coming to you with like a collab, i.e. the Odin's Eye Angelica collab that we just reviewed. Let's start with the ABH Cosmos palette because I think that this is the most interesting of the 2 palettes that I have to review for you today. This is a palette that launched, I believe, around June of this 2023 year. And I mean, it's real pretty. When you open it up, it really called my name a lot more than an ABH palette has called my name in the past several years, actually. But this is what the palette looks like. So you can see it's just a really beautiful, like baby blue, kind of almost turquoise vinyl, almost, I would say. Not really felt like they're known for, but also not just a normal like cardboard package. I do think it's cardboard underneath there, but this feels a little bit like satin or vinyl, which I know are 2 completely different kinds of materials as well. Cosmos is a little bit indented in the packaging, so if you really concentrate hard, you can figure out what this palette is, because this isn't flat to the packaging, and there's little stars that are also kind of indented into the packaging, and it just says Anastasia Beverly Hills underneath it. On the back of the packaging, you're going to see the little sticker that's been across most of them to this point, and it tells you that there's a 12-month shelf life on here. It gives you a little bit more information about the palette as far as weight and whatnot, and then that's about it. How you can get a hold of ABH, where ABH is. It has a nice mirror on it. Very rarely take the plastic piece off of my mirrors, and then this is the color story. This is a $55 eyeshadow palette, and each one of these pans is 0.05 ounces of product. This is slightly larger than what their old packaging used to look like as far as pan size. Those were 0.03, 0.04 ounces per pan, so these are slightly larger. These also have 2 less eyeshadows in them than the old pans did, or the old palettes did. They also do not have the brush anymore, which in my humble opinion is fine, because the brush was kind of a POS brush anyways. It was definitely a throwaway brush. It was very pokey and hard to use on your eyes. So it doesn't hurt my feelings that there isn't a brush in here anymore, but I'm a little, I don't know if off-put is the right word, but they no longer include a brush in here, but these palettes are $10 more than the old palettes were, with 2 additional shades and a brush. Now, I understand inflation and all the things, but that seems like a little bit of a stretch if you ask me. These are Galaxy inspired shade. There are 12 shadows in here and 3 different finishes. So you're going to see mattes, metallics, and dual chromes in this palette. So the mattes are going to be these 2 here, and then these 3 here, and the rest of them are metallics or duochromes. This one up here is like full of like glitter. I think that for the most part, a lot of this glitter can just be like tapped off or something along those lines, because this one is the least impactful of all of the shimmer shadows in this palette. So I definitely think that if you try really hard and pick it up on a fluffier brush, you can definitely tap off most of that glitters. It doesn't, I utilized it a lot as a black in my eyeshadow looks, and you couldn't really see the blue glitters. This is a cruelty-free palette, and it is soft and blendable. There's not really any kind of patchiness with the shadows. There's not any kind of voiding with the shadows, and definitely no staining. On Sephora, this palette does have a 3.9 star rating with 66 reviews that make up that star rating, which I found to be really, really low for number of reviews, because on Ulta, this is 4.6 stars and it has 301 reviews, and on Google, it's 4.2 stars with 248 reviews. So I'm just not sure why Sephora has the least amount of reviews on this palette, but I was really kind of taken aback by that number. It's not like it's a new eyeshadow palette. Yes, it's new 2023, but it's not new. It came out prior to summer. I would probably say I'd put it in that 4.2 range. The shimmers in this palette aren't super duochromy, and the mattes in this palette aren't Natasha Denona mattes, right? Yes, they're super blendable. Yes, they're super pigmented. They're ABH. ABH happens to be one of my top 5 brands as it stands right now. So it's not like I don't love the brand, but I would say that it's a 4.2, 4.3 star rating in my humble opinion. Most of the 1-star ratings on any of these review platforms, those 1-star ratings are coming from the fact that people received a broken eyeshadow palette, because these are, you know, the shimmers specifically in this palette are pretty soft. They're really, really soft and fragile. So if you dig too hard, if you go super ham, if you go in with a really, really dense brush, which I would suggest you use with these shimmers, if not with your finger, you can break that shadow all apart. And if you can pick this up in store, I would suggest you do that, because the postal system is just super unpredictable. So this shipping through the postal system is probably going to come to you broken. Like, But if I have to be honest with you, I don't rank a palette based on how it arrives to me if I depended on the postal system to get it to me. Like, I'm not going to put it as a 1 because it had broken shadows because the postal system brought it to me. I'm going to be disappointed with that. I'm going to maybe return it and get a new one if I could. But if I can do that, why wouldn't I just go get it initially in that way? But also, a lot of these shadows feel like they're super easy to just repress into the pan. I think that you would have to do something funky with mattes, like get out the alcohol and, you know, mix it all up and make sure it's all smooshed and then smush it back into the pan. But these shimmers are so moisture rich and soft that you can just shift them around and press them back into the pan. They're going to be fine. So I would never rank a palette as a 1 star because it arrived to me in a way I didn't love it. Unless the company had broken up those pans and sent it to me that way themselves, which I can't even imagine them doing. So there's that. This is a Galaxy-inspired eyeshadow palette, as I said, with 12 shadows in it, 3 different finishes. You have matte, metallic, and duochrome. All of the shadows on my lid space, there are 3 different duochromes in here. I have this one all over the outer section of my lid. I have this one on the inner portion of my lid, and then I have this one kind of built into the inner corner and up into that blue. I think that they are duochromy, but I think that there's not the shift that we've become accustomed to from things like Danessa Myricks or Cleona or, you know, some of our indie brands. These are as shifty as ABH is going to get. Like, I think they did a good job with them, but they're not like duochromes, if that makes any sense. What I love about this palette is the range goes really, really deep. And like I said, this one with the blue glitters in it, you could definitely use as a black like matte and an eye look, tap off. Most of those blue glitters are going to go away. And even when you put it on your eye, unless you have a glitter glue down, they're going to blend away as you're blending it onto your eye. It does go really, really deep. I just wish there was a lighter matte in this as well, because this is your lightest matte and that is in my eye look today, and that's not light enough for many people to do like their brow bone or their inner corner if they wanted a light toned matte. Even if they wanted a light toned matte all over the lid, this is as light as it's gonna get, and that's just not light enough. So I wish it had, maybe instead of this shade here, that we had just went ahead and put in like a beige or a really pretty white matte shade. I know that they can do white mattes. Some of my favorite white mattes are from my ABH palette, so I know that they can do a really good white matte. You can get some really pretty wearable looks out of this palette, but you can also go really super glam, really super grungy as well, really deep and dark and sultry. So I love that about this palette. With this section specifically of shadows, throw in this one in the outer corner. You'd even pop this one in there. This one, you can get some really beautiful like warm tone brown or even peachy toned eye looks that are very wearable for every day. For those of you who need kind of a one and done eyeshadow palette, I do believe that this could fit that case for you, because it does have the colors, it does have the beautiful sparkly shimmers, the more impactful like smooth shimmers for your eyes, don't exacerbate any texture, really are beautiful, but it also goes from everyday daytime to glam nighttime if that's what you're looking for. It truly is a versatile palette. One thing that I love about it too, and I'll pop a picture in here of this because I was looking at some of these shades and I'm like, this would make a really beautiful blush. This was formulated in a way that it could also be your like face palette. And one thing that I love about that is sometimes with an eyeshadow palette, when you go to put those eyeshadows onto your face, it just looks like you're putting an eyeshadow onto your face. With this palette, I didn't find that to be true. This makes a really beautiful contour for my skin tone. It is a little bit purple, so I have to be very, very careful with how I do it. It is in my eye look today, and this is it all like saturated and built up, but not built up. It is a pretty perfect like gray tone for just that section of contour that I'm just trying to really define the bones, right? The cheekbones. This is a beautiful, beautiful peachy blush. This is a beautiful like terracotta blush. I am actually surprisingly not wearing any of these as a face shade today, but I have. This is also a really beautiful like mid-tone contour. Like it is also in my eye look today. It's above that purple shadow, so it does get really deep as well, but not nearly as deep as this. So what I found was mixing this and this together would help me create that perfect contour for my cheeks. So if you needed this to be your face palette because you go out of town and you bring this palette and you don't want to bring anything else because you don't have enough room, this could be the all-in-one for you, as long as you're okay with these two as your blush shades and like these two as your like contour shades. I think that this could also be a contour for like a deeper skin tone than mine. Everything is just built really well in this palette. I used this a couple times as a highlight just on my cheeks, just patting it on right there. It just looks so pretty. I don't find that these lay on my skin differently, even though they're eyeshadows. Sometimes you have eyeshadow palettes that both like you can use it all over your face, and when you do that they just really look awful. I think like the highlights here, even though on the eyes they're super impactful and glittery and beautiful, not glittery but you know full of impact and full of sparkle and full of shine, but on your face just tapped on they're such a beautiful highlight and they don't exacerbate any texture on your eyes, so they're not going to exacerbate texture on your face. The mattes also do that quite nicely. The pigmentation is there right away. They're super easy to blend because they're ABH eyeshadows. So you can get the pigmentation that you want. It can look like this right off the bat, but it can also be sheared out really, really nicely. Super pigmented, but also super blendable. Most of the eyeshadows in here have a really silky feel. Again, they're not going to exacerbate any texture on your eyes. I like that because some of these like really super sparkly eyeshadows do cause a lot of texture on your eyes, or the appearance of a lot of texture on your eyes because they're super chunky and flaky. These ones are not, but still very, very impactful on an eye look. I would say that these are best with a primer for both blend and saturation of the shadow. Using a white base primer is going to give you the best like color payoff, but if you just want them to go on true to how they're going to build these ones, I don't have a white base primer underneath, and I really kind of love how they turned out today. This is probably my favorite eye look of utilizing the palette. They're best with the primer because of saturation and blend. But I would say as far as, you know, length of time that you're wearing it, so wearable time with a primer, it's not much longer than it is without a primer. They do last an awful long time. I found that to be true of ABH in the past. I find that to be true of their current formulations as well. I have fallen asleep on the couch a couple nights, you know, gearing up to being sick, plus being sick. As a matter of fact, just today I took off a peachy eye look that I had worn for the last 3 days because I wasn't washing my face, which is entirely disgusting, but I'm a gross human being, but also was sick, and washing my face was the last thing that I was thinking about when I couldn't breathe and or talk and or eat. There's a good 10-hour wear time with this, easy, before, you know, there's noticeable fading or movement or anything. Today, the shimmers on my lid are put over the top of a tacky glitter glue, which kind of makes me mad because this is not the first NYX glitter glue tube that I've had a problem with, and right now I have a brush stuck down in there because the nozzle of the tube just came off today. Like, they need better packaging. But they are stuck over the top of a glitter glue, but I found them to be just as impactful even when they were not over the top of a glitter glue. The shimmers will perform for you wet or dry over a glitter glue or no. I think on a finger, on a brush, as long as it's a dense brush, you're gonna get an impactful eye look regardless. Best wet, best over glue, but also you're gonna get a pretty good shimmer. The inner corner is not over glue or wet, so you're gonna get still a really good impactful shadow regardless. These do have considerable amounts of powder that kick up in the pan. They also have considerable amounts of fallout. ABH is pretty known for the amount of fallout that their shadows have. This is not a palette that is any different. I did not notice anywhere, not on here, not on the packaging, that there was not for eye use shades in this palette, which was great. I did see that there was one of the like 2-star rating reviews on one of the pages that I was looking at that said that there was too many not for eye use shadows in this palette. I looked, you guys, I didn't see any on the container or on here or, you know, on the website or anything that showed that there were shades that were not for eye use. And maybe I just didn't see it, but I'm just telling you that because I saw it as a review item. I didn't struggle with any of these shadows. I didn't struggle with them irritating my eyes. I didn't struggle with anything as far as staining goes or irritation or any of that would make me think that there was not for eye use shadows in here. So that is this palette in a nutshell. We're going to swatch them. I'm going to give you the first row and then I'm going to give you the second row and then we'll review the other palette. These are really very soft shadows. So again, they can be pretty fragile. The first one is Super Cluster. Super Cluster is in my eye look today. It is a dual chrome blue-green multi-dimensional sparkly eyeshadow. It is so pretty. I mean, it looks like green on the screen. If I look at it from the side, it's very, very turquoise. This is the turquoise that is in the palette that you see. It's kind of got this like almost clear base. There is a little bit of a base to it, but not a lot of bit of a base to it. So you can see it whether you're head on or to the side, but just such a really beautiful color. One of my favorites to use. This one is called Sun, and Sun is also a duochrome, pink to bronze. Also really pretty. I think looking at it from the side, it looks very golden. Looking at it head on, it looks very pink. Not really one of my favorites to use, but a really pretty shadow nonetheless. This one is Orion. Orion is a metallic icy pink. This one I actually quite loved in my inner corner. It was very smooth metallic shade. It's got a little bit of gold flecked in it, so it partners really well actually with the duochrome one that's pink to gold. It looks beautiful. This one is called Mercury and it is titanium metallic. It reminds me of chrome. It's a really gorgeous, gorgeous shade. I think if any of the shades I felt caused any kind of texture on my eye, it was this one, but I don't think it's because of the lack of smoothness in the shadow, because the shadow is very smooth and like looks very emollient. I think it's because it's kind of thick. It feels a little bit more thick than most shadows. The next one is Quasar, and Quasar is a duochrome. This one is a green, gold, multi-dimensional sparkle kind of shadow. This is also in my eye look today. It's in the inner corner. I kind of love it because it's got this like lime green shift to it that just gives me life. A really, really thin could be a topper in an eye look. I think this one looks really, really good over like any of my green eyeshadows. If I were to pull a green eyeshadow look in, even if I laid down like a green base, this one would look amazing over the top of it. It's got a little bit of a peachy flip to it, but other than that, it's really pretty green, and like I said, is in my inner corner today. The last one on that top row is Galaxy, which is the matte deep blue black. And I think it's only blue black because it's got blue sparkle in it. That blue that you're seeing is all the like blue sparkly bits. If you tap this, I think hard enough, those sparkly bits come out. They're not like super adherent into this shadow. So if you wanted to use it as a black in your eye look, you absolutely could. However, if you get this wet or you put it over the top of a glitter glue, it is the most beautiful greeny blue with a black base shimmer on the planet. It literally looks like the night sky. It is so, so pretty. Then we have Space Dust. Space Dust is the lightest shade in the palette, and it's kind of like a sandy peach. Then we have Comet. Comet is kind of a milky peach color. This is also a matte. Then we have Eclipse, which is kind of like this gray toned plum. This shadow I used so much. I probably used it more than any other shadow in the palette. Then we have the last of the shimmers, and it is actually a duochrome, and it is called Supernova. This one takes the space up in most of my eye look today. A really transparent base. You flip it to the side, you can hardly see anything. It's got a little bit of a gold shift to it on the side, but up front, it's like really purple, pinky blue. It's so, so pretty. And then we have Mars, which is a matte, like rust color, would make a really great blush or really great like red tone bronzer. Mix it a little bit with the Space Dust shade, and you would have the perfect bronzer for somebody of my skin tone. And then we have Dark Matter. This one is like really hard to swatch because my fingers were wet. There we go. This one is your like matte blackened violet, or maybe like even a eggplant color. Super, super pretty. Those are the shadows in the ABH Cosmos palette. And I think that they did a really good job with their like rendition of duochromes. They're not bad duochromes. A lot of like mainstream brands that try and get really like creative with their duochromes and have them be like multichromatic and trying to live in that indie space do a really horrible job at it. And usually we end up with a shadow that's going to create a lot of texture on our face, and I don't feel that way about the eyeshadows in this palette. I really enjoyed this Cosmos palette. Did I think it's the best palette of the year? No, but I absolutely thought it was a great palette, and it makes me excited to want to pull from it because I end up with eye looks that are just so stunning. The palette that I brought in to work with it was this one, which is the Urban Decay Naked X Smiley Mucho Happy palette. And this is a $33 palette, but if you're interested in this one or the other one, which I think has got leans a little bit more on the purple end, they are on sale right now on the Ulta Beauty website for like $9. So run, don't walk if that's what you want. $33 is their regular price. This is the packaging on it. It is really, really cute. It has smiley faces all over it. It's just a regular Urban Decay Naked palette. And one of the minis on the back, it says Smiley and then Mucho Happy down here, and gives you some information about the palette. This is a collab palette with Urban Decay and Smiley Face. I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine where the ideas for these, IPs come in and who they're going to work with and who they're not going to work with. This is a 6-pan eyeshadow palette. Each one of these pans is 0.03 ounces of product. So this is almost It's actually 0.026 ounces of product. So almost half of the product in these pans is what you're going to get in here. What I love about these pans is they're nice and big and square, and you can get an actual brush in here. These ones, I always struggle to get much of a brush into as far as an eyeshadow brush goes, especially like big fluffy brushes, right? Not here nor there. It's not something that steers me away from the brand. What steers me away from the brand is typically the Naked formula. What I would say is that I had a really good time with this Naked formula. It wasn't bad at all. I wore this shade almost every single day. This is just really the beige shade. It's called Psyched. It's got a little bit of a pinky undertone to it. It is in my brow bone today. Just a little bit of a pinky undertone to it, but it's a really beautiful, like, pinky beige. I wore this one quite often. I used it to blend out some eyeshadow looks. I used the yellow to blend out some of the eyeshadow looks with these peaches down here. I also used these two shadows in a look with one of these shimmers that I absolutely loved. This blue was probably my least favorite, but it is so pretty. But I just didn't, because the blue in there was duochromatic, this blue just didn't go with anything in this palette and really didn't go with anything in the other palette. So I really didn't use it very often, but it is beautiful. I used it as an inner corner at one point in time. I mean, it's the Naked formula. It's got a velvety texture and feel. It's really soft. It's really, as far as the mattes go, really performance driven. Like, I feel like they do fine. They go on, they blend well. They blend things out. I don't feel like they're super pigmented, so this is a really good formulation for somebody who's new in like the makeup scene or wanting to grow in how they're able to blend and use an eyeshadow palette. As a matter of fact, I had the Urban Decay Half Baked that I decluttered not that long ago. You guys saw the declutters in my last week of December videos, so you maybe just saw that one yesterday or Monday. I can't remember as I'm filming. I gave that palette to my sister because it's also the Naked formula. I'll probably give her this one too, although I don't know that she would wear these two last shades, but really easy formula for a newbie. It's not a formula that I love working with. I just don't love the formula. It's easy. I just don't love the formula. There's nothing wrong with it specifically. I just don't love the formula. I don't love the shimmers in the Naked formula. I think that they're mediocre at best. I didn't find that they gave any kind of impact in an eye look. I felt like this one that's supposed to be kind of a duochrome was actually very texturizing on my eye looks. I did not love using that at all. I'll give you swatches of all of them, but good pigment, good blendability, but not like great, right? I got approximately 8 hours of wear out of this eyeshadow palette with primer. I didn't even try this one without primer. I just know that Urban Decay shadows for me literally fall off of my eyes within, 5 or 6 hours if I don't use a primer with them. So I didn't not use a primer when I was using one of these eyeshadows. You must use glue or have your brush wet if you're going to use these shimmers and expect them to show up on your eye look in an impactful way, but even then they lose a little bit of their impact upon that second or third hour. I just don't love the Naked formula. This is not news to us. What I would say is that there wasn't any noticeable fallout with this eyeshadow palette, so I did appreciate that. And I think that that can be said across the Naked line, the Naked formula from Urban Decay. I don't feel like their shadows in the Naked formula have a lot of fallout to them. So that might be why there's not really any pigment or anything to them though. Maybe there's just no girth behind it. Who knows? This is vegan and it is cruelty free and it has a 24-month shelf life. I love the packaging on this. Packaging is a snap closure. It is plastic. I love that it's raised. I love the, you know, the cool like iridescence or holographic back there with the smiley faces that look kind of like 70s groovy, like you're on a trip or something. I love that you have a full-size mirror in this palette. I love the attention to detail that they gave to this palette. I just don't like the formula. I think if I was an Urban Decay Naked Formula fan, I would absolutely be head over heels for this palette and the Half Baked palette. I think I said both of them were not bad palettes. They're ranked fairly decently high on my end of year ranking, which is why I'm doing this palette ranking or this palette roulette today. I wanted to make sure that I got this done before we rolled into the new year so that I could include them on my palette ranking. I think that they're great for those that love Urban Decay Naked Formula. None of these stained, none of these got patchy, none of these voided in the corners, none of them did anything. There's not really a dark shade in here, so I wouldn't say that this is a shadow palette that I could use as a one and done. Like I would have to pull in another eyeshadow palette to get a darker shade from this because it's just too light. There's not like that outer V like eyeshadow in this getup, but I don't mind it. On Ulta, this does have 4.4 stars, which is made up of 338 reviews. And on Urban Decay, it has 4.4 stars with 345 reviews. I would say this one is 4.2, 4.4. This one is 4.2, 4.4. This one's 4.2, 4.4 because there is not a super light shade in here. This one is 4.4, 4.2, 4.4 because I don't love this formula and there's nothing deep. I might even go down to a 4 point just because there's nothing, this cannot be a complete eyeshadow palette for me. Maybe a 3.9 even. This can't be a complete eyeshadow palette for me because there's nothing deeper than this in here as far as the mattes go. And I don't love this formula. It doesn't stay long enough for me. It's going to require a primer to work. And if I happen to take it out of town and forget my primer, I'm going to have to go to the store and get one or suffer with a not great eye look. I think that also the shimmers require glue or being wet in order to be impactful on an eye look. And that's what brings me to that lower like score. I'm going to swatch these guys for you and then we'll pull another palette. So I've already swatched the blue. So let's go backwards. Okay, so let's go from blue clear over. So I already swatched the blue there. The blue is called Cyber Smile and it's a turquoise silver metallic. The next one would be the yellow. And the yellow is called Smiley. I loved this yellow. I think it's beautiful. I don't find anything wrong with this yellow. I do think that it fades quite quickly, but I have struggled to find a yellow that doesn't fade super quickly. This one is really bright and impactful upon application though. There's not much that you need to do to get it to be this yellow, and I appreciate that out of this shadow. The next one is Spritzer, which is a pinky orange metallic, and I don't know that I would call it a peachy orange. I think it's really a beautiful copper metallic, very smooth, very pretty. The next one is Partey. Partey is a wannabe duochrome bronze gold. I think I would just say it's, I mean, you can see right there, it's just too close to the other one. There should have been two different metallics in here. This one I think one is a little bit more yellow and this one's a little bit more orange, but on an eye look you just can't see the difference, to be honest. Then we have Blast, which is kind of an orange sherbet matte, just a really pretty peachy color. And then you have Psyched, which is the peachy pink beige matte. So I know those swatches are kind of weird because they wrap around my hand because I started with the blue on the corner of my hand, but those are the shades from this. I think that you can see there's no depth in this palette, not a lot of variety in this palette, and the fact that the two shimmers in this palette could dupe each other, you know, it doesn't fight their case for them in terms of what I love in my collection. I don't mind this palette. It's not a horrible palette, but again, it will probably be a palette that goes to my sister to go with the half-baked one that I decluttered to her as well. I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm not keeping it not because it's a bad palette, because I really do think that it could be a really great palette for, number one, a person who loves Urban Decay Naked formula, but also any beginner or anybody who, you know, just needs a little bit of something extra in their eyeshadow collection. This blue is a really pretty color. It is a really pretty shadow. I just don't love it nearly as much as somebody else probably would. With that said, I think that is it about these two palettes. So I would really be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on these palettes. I'm going to go pick my new palette. I'll be right back. I think this can go one of two ways. I could either get really, really bored really, really fast, or really, really fall in love and not ever want to put these down. One, I am a little bit terrified of because of the irritation that I had with the last palette, even though that one will stay in my collection forever because it's so pretty, and sometimes the eye irritation is worth it. I am going to bring in my Adept Cosmetics Plain Jane. This is the, I believe, the remastered one. I don't know because I don't know what the other one looked like, but I do believe that this one's remastered. Please correct me if I am wrong. This is what this palette looks like. It is all shimmers. I had some irritation from utilizing the Adept Cosmetics ones in the past. The palette that I am going to pair it with is the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. This is a fairly new palette. Look, I am so excited about this palette, but I also know myself, and I know that this will never be my one and done color story. I will do some one and done looks with it, but I'm gonna need some color and some sparkle and some pretty in order to feel like a normal person. Because my January is packed full of all kinds of trainings and stuff at work, I am taking the first week of the month off as my, you know, last hurrah of vacation before we roll into our new fiscal year. I will have a lot of time to play with these two palettes and honestly get a lot of use out of them. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope that you'll join me next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if this was fun for you. Also, I would just love to have you as part of my YouTube fam. This is not normally how my voice sounds, but you know, sometimes we get sick and sometimes we have to come and do the things that we don't want to do when we are kind of feeling a little bit under the weather. I apologize. I would love to have you along for the crazy ride of my life as it is. Yeah, you guys, so those are the two palettes that we'll be reviewing next time. And I know that you're going to be seeing this after the fact, but I really just hope that you guys had an amazing New Year's holiday, that everything was safe. You had a really great festive time, whatever that means to you. Maybe festivities is a party. Maybe it's Netflix and chill. For my family tonight, it's Netflix and chill because we were invited to a party, but I am sick. So we are not doing anything. We're getting pizza and we're Netflix and chilling it. My son went to his girlfriend's house for a party of sorts. It's the first time he's spent New Year's Eve outside of this house, or outside of our house as a family with us. So that's interesting. But thank you guys so much for being a part of my journey. For as much of a part of my journey as you have been, whether it's been since I've been on YouTube since 2017, or whether it's been just recent. Like, I appreciate every single one of you so dang much, and I hope that you know that. I hope that you liked the video. Let me know what your thoughts are of the 2 palettes that I just reviewed, or these 2 palettes that I'm about ready to venture into. If you know anything about them, I would appreciate hearing your thoughts. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that you and yours are well, that you are safe and healthy and getting along as best you can in this world, and that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye, friends.